Hiphoptictacticians of the world.
How we doing tonight?
Well, before we get started, it's going to be old news when you hear it, but Quincy Jones passed away, and it's been messing with me today. I read his autobiography. I want to say in 2002 when it came out, and he's obviously done so much more in the 22 years since then that I don't know as much about. But the first 70 years or so of his life that I read about were fascinating. And I read that at a time when I was in recording school and took a lot of inspiration from that. And honestly, I was telling Zach earlier, I don't know if there's anybody that has done more for music in the last 100 years than Quincy Jones, maybe. And it's I think it's got a lot of us kind of thinking like, wow, like the guy that made Thriller's gone. And also like what I was thinking is the guy that snuck into the juke joints is gone, and the guy that ate rats with his brother by the river because that's all they could afford is gone.
Yeah,
the guy that brought jazz musicians to France because they couldn't play in amalgamated rooms in the South is gone. So Quincy Jones was huge for civil rights and music for not only our generation but our parents and our grandparents, and in many cases our great grandparents as well. So big loss for the music community. But on a brighter note, we have Jake French Toast.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how we doing today?
Excellent, thank you.
It's good to be here. I've started hitting a couple more podcasts recently. I did an interview about a month ago with a guy local to me, and it just ended up being like a chat about whatever the hell you want kind of thing. And I mean, we were just off on so many different tangents for like 2 hours of what was supposed to be like a music and like lifestyle based podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of just took off.
Ours goes that way too. I used to write down questions, but it seems less natural that way. And quite honestly, we don't get as good of stories. So
Get that,
yeah, the tangents are coming. So we met you through Chris Webby's tour this spring throughout Canada that Zach was a big part of. But I can see in your background picture you've got lots of microphones, speakers, maybe a couple amps, and a drum kit. So it's obvious that you've got quite a bigger music story than just that. So let's hit rewind all the way to the beginning.
Sure.
How did you come in to fall in love with music?
Man, so I mean, you could take it back as far as like me being born. My dad was a musician in my local area of Seacoast, New Hampshire, and he was trying to do the like original bands, open for different artists type of thing around here for a long time. Once the kids came into the picture, it started. He turned into like the acoustic duo or the cover band singer type guy. So I grew up, I mean, as long as I can totally remember, with band practices happen at my house once or twice a week, and just always being in a very musical household. So my mom played guitar, my dad is a vocalist, my sister does both, and so I think it just kind of was like an adaptation of I fell into place of being a musician. I played trumpet back when I was like 7-8 years old and tried to be in school band for a while, and did not like it. It was too refined and too has rules.
Right.
So I ended up picking a guitar up at around 11 years old, and I stopped playing anything that wasn't distorted, essentially.
Nice.
I started playing drums around 8 years old. I remember asking my parents to get me a drum set because I was jealous of my dad having band practice, and his drummer was always so cool, and I was really wanting to understand that lifestyle. So drum set at 8. I took maybe 4 hour-long lessons with my dad's drummer before I realized that wasn't going to work out, because again, it's the structured aspect that I was never really about. Having somebody come at me and tell me like, this is what we're going to work on today, it didn't work for me.
Right.
So Yeah, I was drums at 8, guitar at 11, and just kind of kept doing that all throughout middle school and high school. And I ended up going to a high school that was not the like public high school of my town.
Okay.
We had a charter school that was based around music and arts, essentially. So it
So
was like a theater school almost.
So, explain for our listeners, because we don't have charter schools in Canada. We have public school and private school. So, is that from what I understand, that's like a hybrid where a little bit
Absolutely.
of government funding, but you got to pay a bit too?
Contrary to popular belief, there's no payment necessary from the family or from the kid to go to the school. Now, from what I recall, you have to be a resident of the state that it resides in.
Well, that makes sense.
At that point, the funding for the school is all based off of the board and the like president of the school, to say the least. So they have to go after getting government funding, such as grants and like public money, to be able to afford paying the tuition, or not the tuition, but the payroll for the teachers and getting school supplies. So like we didn't have a cafeteria. You had to bring your own food every day, and if you didn't, there was nothing to supplement that. It was So
to give us perspective, like your area in New Hampshire where you're from, how many people are populated in that town, for example?
I'm in one of the larger populated areas. I mean, I think my town at the time was 30,000 when I was growing up.
Okay, so it's a decent sized town.
Yeah, at least for New Hampshire standard, it is.
Definitely.
But my school had 70 kids in it. I graduated with 15 other people. Yeah, like it was a very small, tight knit, community based school where like, age gaps didn't matter. If you were 15 and you were hanging out with this 18-year-old because you both like the same band, then like it was so integrated at that point that like, I kind of got to step off on that because there was a lot of older kids that were metal musicians. And while I was kind of getting into that lifestyle, like not lifestyle, but the genre of metal and rock and roll, they were just the ones already doing it. They were playing shows as a local band and like making friends that are from even, 3 towns over. When you were a kid, that was far away. And now it's like 20-minute drive. That's nothing,
Right.
But so I was kind of enamored by the fact that there was a bunch of these kids that were like doing it, being a band and getting, trying to get my foot in the door in that aspect. So while I think it was kind of like a hindrance to be in a school that wasn't the public school that had like 2,500 kids in it or something.
Yeah.
I kind of got this like the fulfillment of the less rules and less structure type thing by going to this school. I ended up, you had to do like extracurricular activities to get gym credits, and you need gym credits to pass high school.
Right.
So I ended up actually doing a self-led disc golf like program where I just had to go play and record my hours, and it was like something ridiculous, like 400 hours throughout the
disc golf
throughout the season.
Jesus.
Yeah. So like you average, let's say 200 2 hours per game is like an average. So I would have had to play 200 games in my school year of like 250 days. So it was kind of like really jam packed, and you lie about some of the things like in driver's ed. You didn't really drive like 1,000 hours with your parents. They were like, just throw in 5 extra there. Say we took a road trip, so that kind of thing. But it was a great place to like build your own structure. I think I got started in a good spot by going there right out of like middle school. I just went straight into this charter school. I didn't touch the public school. I knew already that it wasn't going to be right for me.
Right.
And so in that, there was a lot of music programs and other music related people that were working there that just were a much better fit. And I think it turned out to be a very helpful experience compared to just being lost in the fray in a public school.
Yeah, definitely. And then after that, what led you to the career path you've taken now?
So just being a musician throughout those years, I have had my hand in multiple different bands. I was the drummer of a metal band for a period of time. I had fronted my own band for like a year and a half that started getting good progression. Then a couple members left. So like I've always been in the mindset of like music's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to take down the walls of it has to be in this space, in this regard.
Right.
It doesn't have to be just fitting my rock and roll indie genre, like in this case, how I met you guys working for Chris Webby. I'm a like a stagehand. I'm the guy that is kind of just a floater. I'm like the extra hand that has knowledge in all of these different places that they're going to need at some point.
Right.
And that's just truly from my experience of being in different environments, many rock and roll shows, many metal shows, and then many hip hop shows at this point. I mean, over the past 2 years, I've probably been a part of like 130 hip hop shows over 700 days. That's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't listen to hip hop throughout my normal day. It's not my thing. Like,
okay, yeah.
I respect it. I know that people have that, and I can appreciate it in certain spaces, and more artists than others. But like, it's just like I got thrown into it, and I enjoy the people I work with, but it's not my like end all be all workspace as a musician.
So within that workspace, what would you say is like your biggest pet peeve? Like what takes your day from being like, oh, this is the sweetest job ever, and then every time someone pulls this one stunt that just kind of turns your day?
There's a couple that I could think of. Number one is important opener syndrome, where like you have to be the center of attention.
Right.
And like it doesn't matter that you are the 15-minute opener for this show. You're gonna
one of 10 maybe.
Yeah, and you're gonna get into this flow of your performance where everything's going well. You just did that song great. Now it's time to do my little dialogue in between songs, and boom, there goes the timing for the show because your dialogue, and you're like need to feel the attention.
Yeah.
Like you get the attention by performing, and then anything else extracurricular off of that is kind of pointless as the opener.
Right.
Like there's a guy that we work with sometimes that has this like built-in conversation essentially with the crowd, and it tells a really detailed depictive story of his past and why he's here now, which I think is like a choice exception that like that's okay that he does that because he completely shifted 180 from here to here. Here's how that happened. Other than that, if you're just talking about like, man, yeah, like me and my boy were in the studio a couple days ago, decided to just like start cooking and we ended up with this. No one needs to hear that. Like that's how every song is written. We know that. Like I want it to be either really important so that I can put that together with this song, or don't tell me anything and just let me take it in as it is. So I think that's a big pet peeve.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, different cities, different places, you deal with so many different runs of walks of life, and that stuff gets really annoying. I'll say that. So annoying that I don't even remember the other one that I had as an example.
I can't think of anything that's probably much worse than that. So, I know one thing that I hate more than anything as a DJ is sorting files on stage.
Yep. Oh, never do that.
That's insane. That's fucking insane.
There's nothing I hate more than, a manager or a performer even coming out when someone else is doing their set and handing me a memory stick and saying, I got another song that I need you to add.
Right. Absolutely not.
Fucking hate that.
Not what we agreed on. There was I guess a quick extra one I'll have. I've only seen it a handful of times in my life, but it happened on this last tour, like, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where local opener goes up on stage and like knows his time slot, knows how long he has. It's pretty limited.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the front of house guy running tracks. Okay, so he doesn't have a DJ.
Yeah.
He's relying on the sound engineer to do that for him. That means you're just gonna play and go.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You don't get to run it back.
So this guy steps up on stage, song starts, and he just stands there for 2 minutes, like just waiting. And finally, I'm like looking, talking to the sound guy, whatever.
Is that an empty?
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Looking and talking to the sound guy, and I'm just like, does he know he's on right now? And I mean, he's standing in the middle of the stage with 300 people in front of him. He should know he's on right now.
Well, especially if it's his track playing.
Yeah, so that's the thing. He didn't know that it's his track playing? He's like, oh, I thought it was just background music. Dog, absolutely not. This is your intro to your performance. What do you mean that you thought it was background music? It's an instrumental. You're a rapper.
Crazy.
So, and then after that, in between every song, not just dialogue, shitting on the sound guy. Dialogue.
Oh, who's
like,
running your tracks too?
Yeah, like absolutely just being belligerent and like rude to the guy that is making his show happen.
That's the worst.
So like the dude steps off stage, he's immediately disgruntled and like yelling at the sound guy. I walk over to the sound guy and I'm like, hey, what happened up there? And he starts yelling at me. I'm like, look, I don't care about you. Like, I'm hired by other people to work for those other people. You just happen to be here at my job today. I don't care. Sorry that you started late and sorry that you ran over time. Is that what you're apologizing about? Because that's fucking our show up.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't care how it went. You had a set. You made it how it was. Deal with it.
Yeah.
So, big important opener syndrome all the time. That's like the worst thing you could do.
Definitely.
Be humble, That's really it. Be humble and know that not everyone's there for you. Most people are not there for you. But if you can turn them into being a fan of you through your personality, that's a different story.
Absolutely.
But don't be an asshole. That's just the worst.
It doesn't win anybody over.
Not at all.
Especially if it prolongs them standing on their feet for longer than they have to before they see who they actually paid to see.
I mean, yeah, we're already running like a 3.5 hour long show of rappers. And how we have it worked in, there's no breaks in between.
Mm-hmm.
So like you just kind of have to choose when to walk away, and it better be at a good time,
Well, yeah, and we talk about this a lot on the show, and when they're set up that way, it's sometimes unfortunate for the openers because, I mean, for myself, if I'm paying to see a headliner, I don't want to go there at 7:30 and stand for 5 hours before they hit the stage. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And oftentimes, the best performer of the night is that guy that has the 8:30 slot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. At least, like, I mean, every show is different too.
Yeah.
Realistically, you could just be there for the opening band and they're like the best thing ever, and they're just the local opener. But isn't that where we all start? I mean, like, I understand that part of the show and the experience is important to start the career of that musician.
Mm-hmm.
But it still depends on how you carry yourself and how other people receive your actions and words, and so a really good thing that one of our friends, Annoyed, is doing. Annoyed's signed to ADHD as well. He started doing like these performance tip videos on Instagram.
Yes.
And
I actually was just showing Jay those the other
while
day.
while pointless to fans it is, he's trying to create a better foundation of like beginners. You know, just giving you that extra step up.
Stop looking at the floor.
Yeah, stop looking at the floor. You're not singing to your shoes. Like, you're singing to people with fucking eyes. So, yeah, I think that what he's doing with that is a great idea, because it's not coming at you with like aggression or making you feel stupid for what you've done before. It's just understand that everything that you're doing has like a adverse reaction to it. If you're staring at me, I'm going to listen to you, unless I'm not a good person and just don't care. You know, like that. It goes both ways all the time. So if you're not singing to me, but you're right in front of me, I don't think you care about connecting with me.
Right.
You know, I think that he's doing a great thing by making that little series of just know what you're doing type of thing. Yeah.
So when you go on these tours, your home base is obviously New Hampshire, but how long are you away at a time generally?
So normally, like, whatever the dates for a show are, add 3 extra days for me normally. Depending where the area is. So like earlier this year we did a 5-show run just through like the mountain territory of the US. We hit New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah. I think maybe it was it. Maybe it was just 4. But I was gone for 16 and a half days.
Yeah.
Because I had to drive 3 days from, yeah, so 1 day from my house to Connecticut. It's only like a 4-hour drive, but I got there the night before with plans to leave in the morning. So that's where like the half day comes in. 3-day drive from Connecticut to New Mexico. And then like days off pretty much in between almost every show for some reason. Just was like a really weird built schedule. And then had to drive back to Connecticut from Salt Lake City, which is like a 36-hour trip. So another 3 days back from that, put it at a total of like 16 days on the road. It was like a 8-day 5-show tour, but me and my merch guy drive the production truck, so we had to be out there those 7 extra days essentially, just because you can't fly all that stuff. It would cost you half of a brand new car to fly out all that merch and the production stuff alone.
Yeah, so I guess by those numbers and averages and the 130 shows you said earlier, you're spending about half your time on the road.
Like, for the most part, I mean, that's over a 2-year stretch, but I have done respectively 7 tours with Webby so far.
Oh wow!
And I mean, it's a pretty high number. Maybe it's technically 6, but one of them back in 2023 was like a month-long 22-show mega tour through Canada.
Right.
And, I mean, that felt like an eternity. Being gone for just a month doesn't sound like a lot on paper, but it felt like a year.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, most people get 2 weeks vacation when they start a job.
Yeah.
And they split that up and they go somewhere for a week and they're happy to get home.
And I did that when I was younger too. Like, I took a vacation across the country to see my sister who lives in Portland, Oregon. And 8 days was too much for me. I was like, damn, I could have done 4 and probably been fine, seen everything I wanted to, and been home without getting that, like, I'm losing purpose feeling almost.
Right.
I haven't been on like a real vacation before where I go to like a tropical place and sit by the pool and whatever. I haven't done anything like that. But I hesitate because I don't know if I'll enjoy it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you get so many other parts of the vacation experience through your job.
Most of the time, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people would say, like, oh, I'm going to go to Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm going to see all the tourist shit and stay in hotels and eat at restaurants, and you get 2 days off between shows while you're there. So you get to do all that anyway.
Right. I mean, you're not wrong in some regards. It really does depend just on the way that the tour is scheduled. Mm-hmm. So my merch guy is also a close team member of Strange Music. So he works directly with Tech 9.
Mm-hmm.
He, being a hand on the crew, gets that luxury sometimes. Where it's like, hey, we're doing these like mega shows. Like this summer they opened for Falling in Reverse for 3 months straight. Okay. So it takes like a day to set up that stage alone.
Oh yeah.
You know, so pretty much it would be like one show, day off, next show, day off, maybe 2 days off. Mm-hmm. So he had this like on-off schedule where if you're not one of the rig guys like setting the stage up, you have just a day off. Nice. And sometimes you're stuck in a bus like traveling, but a lot of the time for him, he was just left to his own devices in a new town for the whole day. You know,
that sounds amazing.
Well, I haven't been
my whole career. I've been that guy spending 23 hours a day flipping the stage for the next group. But
right, I mean, it's a big flip side when, you know, if you were like a tech for somebody, a drum tech or a guitar tech or whatever, if they're at that level where they have such a big stage that it takes a day to build, I mean, you're actually living a real good life right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't need to go out and perform and get all sweaty and blah, blah, blah. You're just in the background, like tuning up guitars, polishing, making sure that they're good. You have maybe like 2 to 3 hours of work a day. And the rest is like travel. Yeah, it would be a cool, like, I've always thought about being a drum tech would be a cool gig for me.
Yeah, they look like happy guys for the most part.
Yeah. And the drummer of Falling in Reverse, he's one of the biggest drummers on the world. His name's Luke Holland. He got his start on YouTube. He has a drum tech that started his own YouTube channel where it's just him showing what he does in a day. And cool. Like most of the day, dude, he's just hanging out, using the facilities, getting catering. Then he does his drum setup for an hour and a half, watches the show.
A hammock works really nicely under a stage line.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can, you know, if you're on like a festival or something and you got time off, you can hear the whole festival while like just lounging underneath the stage. On a
as long
hammock.
As you're not near the subs, that sounds like a relaxing.
Yeah, you don't want to be near the subs.
No, never. Oh man.
So your next tour, what's that one about?
So it's not announced yet, but I did just get the dates for it. It is pretty much a month-long West Coast US into Canada across again.
Okay.
Yeah. So every year Webby has done 420 in Denver for I think like 13, 14 years in a row.
Okay.
So the tour is pretty much starting out there, and then we're going like down in the desert area, little California, over to Las Vegas, up and over through Oregon and Washington, and then off into Canada. So hitting a couple spots that I've been to before and hitting a couple new ones. I've never touched Nevada or Arizona or California even. I've never been there. So that's going to be a cool experience. But Canada, man, is a different world. I mean, you guys know.
Yeah, are you doing like all of Canada again or just the west part?
I mean, it's like west to central. It doesn't touch Toronto. It doesn't touch anything east.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty much like Victoria over to Saskatoon and everything in between.
Okay, so you guys are doing like, that makes sense. You guys did like east to the East Coast, and then Ontario this year, and then next year you're doing all the the rest
Yeah,
of it.
and we already did, like, you know, as I said, a month-long Canada last year.
Yeah,
but
man,
it
you
was
guys
a-
are going crazy in Canada.
It was a different different tour reason, I guess. Like, Webby's on his last Wednesday album, so this is the tour that covers that, while last tour was more of just like a get out there and do it kind of tour.
Hmm.
I gotta
He's
definitely
got a
make
grand
one of
scheme.
those. I'll make it out to one show for sure.
Absolutely. I mean,
While you guys are here.
I know that I have the dates right here. Let's see. So the furthest out near you is Regina, Saskatoon, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know where that is. Let's look.
So there's Regina, Saskatchewan, and then Saskatoon is
Oh yeah, that's
3
it.
hours away from Regina.
So yeah, our last two shows are Saskatoon and Regina.
Dude,
If-
that's so cool.
If you have to pick, Zach, between going to Saskatoon or Regina, I strongly encourage Saskatoon.
I might talk to the promoter in one of the Alberta shows and see if I can actually open it.
Well,
It's
that
the
might be
same-
better.
So I know that it's the same promoter for every Canada show.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is it-
I'm not sure who, so don't ask me on that,
Okay.
because I didn't book.
Yeah,
it.
it just cost you more editing.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I can edit all that out if you want me to. But
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying that that's the next
that's
tour.
tight.
That's the next step. Besides that, I mean, I do have my own music that I'm working on having come out now.
Sweet.
So me being singer songwriter for the band, it's like rock and roll, Third Eye Blind, Incubus style music.
Okay.
That much more is like the realm of, that I like to be in. That's what I write. That's what I love listening to.
Mhm.
So I have a 10-track LP that is currently being mastered, and we are starting the music video process for it in a week and a half.
Excellent.
Yeah. And a lot of money went into the album, so we don't really have any money to put into the video aspect. Luckily, I am a photographer / amateur videographer, so our first video we're just going through with like a green screen, kind of like funny gimmicky video.
Right.
And then we've got other plans that we're like storyboarding out for the rest of the videos.
That's awesome.
But trying not to be considered just a local musician anymore, you know? Like that's my main goal. Is I got a whole album of music that I'm really confident about, and if it doesn't touch people's ears, I'm going to be disappointed. Yeah.
Well, if there's a couple tracks that are available to play when this show airs, let Zach know, and we'll get those on there for sure.
Most definitely.
We play mostly hip hop music, but I mean it's your episode, so we'll play your stuff too.
Fair.
I'm interested to hear the whole album when it comes out, because my girlfriend's a drummer as well.
Oh, great.
And, we listen to a lot of Sublime and, like you said, Incubus and
Oh yeah.
311, like all that stuff. So I'm sure I'll like your stuff as well.
I can almost guarantee it by hearing what you said there. Yeah, I mean, the drummer of Incubus is like one of my biggest influences for, I mean, really all of writing. You know, like I grew up listening to the Foo Fighters and Incubus, Pink Floyd, Iron Maiden. It was like those kind of songwriters, how they just don't. It's not a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus out all
Right.
the time. You know, it's got so much more to it, and I think that, like, I'm a big music studier, so I studied these artists a lot when I was younger to try to then integrate it into my own music later on. That's funny that you say that your wife is a drummer and likes Incubus. It's just like, in the big picture, that is funny, you know. Somebody that I've always looked up to is their drummer, Jose. Absolute animal.
Really, any band that is like really drum driven, like she loves Tool and like all those ones, right?
Hell yeah.
but yeah, between the two of us, we both go to shows. Like if it's one of my things, she goes. If it's one of her things, I go. So we probably go to 100 shows a year.
Wow. That's respectable, you know, to say the least. Because my dad used to be on that kind of grind, going to like, I think it was a show a week at least.
Yep.
And
And sometimes it's more than, like, sometimes it's 3 or 4 in a week. Like if I have a mini tour or something that I'm DJing on, or
yeah,
and then there's like sometimes 2 or 3 weeks where we don't go to anything. But yeah, I'd say like averaging usually 2 a week.
wow. I mean that's great for numbers. I mean, just keeping the
It's tiring.
yeah, keeping up with that can't be easy.
But you know, we've kind of reached a point where unless it's an arena show, we usually get a guest list spot. So that makes it easier too, because you don't feel compelled to stay for the whole 5 hours.
Also true. Working my way up to be able to do that. I want to be a guest on a show one time. Just show up, be like, "Hey guys, do my thing, head out." I got dinner reservations at Burger King for 9 o'clock.
Burger King at 9.
Yeah.
Gotta do it. So tell our listeners where they can follow you on the socials, and where they can find your album and everything else.
So
We'll list it on our post as well. But
so
if
the
they're
band that
subscribed in the car, they can hear it.
the band that I am in / starting, it's called Real Gone. It was so the band that I created back when I was like 20, 21, did for a year and a half. I'm bringing that band back, taking a couple of the old songs, reimagining them, and bringing them back to like 100% real, like well quality, you know, mastered music. Whereas before we were just kind of doing it at like a friend's house, and his dad knows somebody that can mix it for $200.
Right.
You know, like I'm going many eons above that and being like, hire a professional.
Yeah.
So, once the music is out, it'll be under the name Real Gone. I'm anticipating maybe March is when our first single comes out.
Okay.
And then my Instagram, Facebook, everything is Jake French Toast. It's pretty much that across the board.
Dope.
Wherever you want to find me, I'm sure if you Google it at this point, you know, I might come up first. I used to stream on Twitch, so like you'll see a Twitch account with that name. So, like, I mean everything. Snapchat.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us tonight.
Yeah, most definitely.
If you have more material after that, please come back to promote it.
I can do so.
Our listeners have diverse ears, so you know, they love to hear the Incubus-esque sound of music as well. And yeah, hopefully you and Zach get to work together again too.
Hell yeah.
I don't doubt that that's going to happen. I think that, you know, Zach is built into the realm of people that I know now that will
Yes.
always have a hand in, you know, something that's going on musically.
Hell yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
It was good talking with you for sure. It's good to see you again since tour.
Absolutely. No, it's nice to be able to just like sit down and talk music, because, you know, in my everyday life, most people around me are just asking, how are things? How was tour? How was blah blah blah? Like,
Right.
You don't really get to workshop with people who know what it's like and are more like, what's next? What keeps happening? What is happening in between? You know, those are the things that, like, those conversations mean more than, how was tour? See anything cool? Like, yeah, I saw 15 dead deer in 5 minutes in Pennsylvania. That was cool. Like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.